The Dominion ships moved like a mechanical tide across the sky, silver spires gliding silently above Earth's cities, casting cold shadows over humanity's monuments. From New York to Nairobi, Beijing to Buenos Aires, people gathered in the streets, necks craned toward the heavens, waiting for salvation or doom. Inside the Dominion flagship Braxtal, High Executor Orcs watched the planet below with dispassionate, multifaceted eyes. The humans, he calculated, were 91.3% likely to submit. They always did, eventually. Once the fleets appeared, once the terms were read, most species simply collapsed under the weight of galactic inevitability. The Dominion didn't conquer planets. It absorbed them. But something about Earth felt different. These primates, Zorix muttered, voice clicking in his native tongue, are slow to kneel. His adjutant, a smaller insectoid named Thil, tilted his head. Perhaps they lack coordination. Their species is fractured, primitive, tribal. Zorix nodded slowly. Perhaps, or perhaps. He let the thought trail off, antennae twitching. Down on Earth, Colonel Rourke stood in front of a rusted blast door inside No Raid's defunct lower levels. The command center above had long since become a tourist attraction. What few knew was that buried beneath it lay a network of dead satellites, hidden tunnels, EMP-hardened servers, and most importantly, Project Echo. A technician keyed in the final override code, and the blast door groaned open. Inside were rows of dormant drones, stealth aircraft cloaked in invisibility mesh, and a server bank linked to a global network of untraceable comm relays. "This isn't a counterattack," Rourke said to his handpicked team. "It's an education. We're going to show them what fear looks like when it wears a human face." Back in orbit, the Dominion's countdown reached 0. Executor Zorix ordered the first city to be made an example. "Begin with Tokyo," he said flatly. "Standard plasma barrage. Minimum force. Enough to remind them their place." Above Japan, a ship the size of a mountain opened its central maw. Blue-white plasma gathered and fired. A beam of annihilation that cut through the skyline like a blade of light. Skyscrapers melted. Entire blocks vanished in a storm of atomic fire. Millions died in 38 seconds. The Dominion expected chaos, riots, global screams of surrender. Instead, a different signal pulsed across their intercept networks. It was a grainy video, shot on a survivor's phone. A Japanese firefighter, half-burned, carrying a small girl through the flames. As ash rained down, he looked into the lens and whispered 2 words: "Don't kneel." The video spread in hours. Subtitles were added in every language. Civilians started organizing into resistance cells. Engineers uploaded 3D printable weapon schematics. Black markets exploded with smuggled gear. Hackers broke into satellite grids. Even street gangs in Sao Paulo pledged allegiance to something bigger than their turf. The Dominion expected compliance. What they got was defiance. And Colonel Rourke's last message, now echoed by billions, repeated through encrypted channels across Earth. "They thought we'd surrender. Let's teach them fear." The ruins of Tokyo still smoldered. Ash drifted over crumbled towers like black snow. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to molten slag. The Dominion hadn't just attacked. They'd performed a calculated demonstration of dominance, the kind they used to cow hundreds of species before. They thought the horror would be enough. They were wrong. In the heart of the devastation, a drone captured footage of a Japanese emergency unit, bloodied, coughing, their faces wrapped in soaked cloth, digging survivors from the rubble with bare hands. A young soldier in a torn GGSD uniform looked up at the camera. He raised a clenched fist. No words, just a silent promise. The footage went viral. Not on official networks. The Dominion had shut those down, but through hastily reconnected darknet servers and resistance broadcasts. It reached the underground shelters of Europe, the weapon factories in the Rocky Mountains, and even the rebel-controlled zone in Lagos, where a former Nigerian Special Forces team had turned an abandoned mine into a missile silo. Something ancient stirred in humanity, something the Dominion hadn't calculated for: righteous fury. Colonel Elias Work watched the burning skyline from a hidden command post in Mongolia, arms crossed. Intel had confirmed that the Dominion had established a forward base in Siberia, a supply relay hub buried in the permafrost. It was lightly defended. It was a mistake. He slammed his fist on the table. They think we're scattered. Let's make them feel how wrong they are. Operation Black Winter launched 2 days later. 37 resistance units from 12 countries mobilized in silence. They rode repurposed mining crawlers and modified snow skimmers through frozen wastelands. A single hack disabled the Dominion's seismic sensors, a trick from an Iranian AI prodigy who'd once been jailed for cyber-terrorism. When the attack began, it wasn't with a bang. It was with ice. The humans tunneled into the base using cryo-drills, emerging from beneath the barracks. The aliens didn't even hear the first shots. Plasma bolts lit up the snow as Dominion guards scrambled in confusion. Their HUDs malfunctioned, jammed by electromagnetic pulses built from scrap microwave towers. The air filled with smoke and metal. The resistance tore through them with brutal precision, using knives, flamethrowers, explosives made from fertilizer. No mercy. No prisoners. A Dominion commander, Sub-Warlord Grax, barely escaped. He staggered into a retreat pod, wounded and scorched. Before launching, he activated a recording beacon. His words, broadcast to the Dominion fleet in orbit, were frantic, unlike anything the High Command had heard before. They don't break. They don't retreat. They burn. His final image, a bloodied human soldier roaring through fire, charging the pod with a thermal lance. The video fed across Dominion ships. Silence followed. For the first time in their expansion history, fear crept into the minds of the invaders. And down on Earth, as the smoke cleared, Rourke's voice came through all resistance comms. We're not here to survive. We're here to make them wish they'd never found us. In the weeks following the Siberia ambush, the Dominion changed tactics. Gone were the blunt force attacks. Now they deployed psychological weapons, citywide blackouts, low-frequency sonic disruptors, and terrifying soundscapes played through hijacked human channels. Every night, alien speakers moaned with the cries of extinct species. Cities fell silent, waiting, listening. The air trembled with manufactured dread. It was meant to paralyze. But fear was a language humans already spoke fluently, and had long since learned to master. In London's underground bunkers, survivors painted murals of defiance on the walls. Burning ships, Dominion skulls split by human hands. In the rubble of Buenos Aires, musicians wrote songs to the rhythm of orbital bombings. And in Berlin, children danced in gas masks to static-filled radio beats. War music, they called it. Everywhere, fear had stopped being a cage. It became a fuel. Colonel Rourke sat in the dim light of a resistance command center buried under an old Swiss fortress. Around him, his global network fed updates into holographic displays. Dominion garrisons being overrun in Pakistan, a guerrilla army rising in Nairobi, a shipyard in Detroit churning out stolen alien tech powered by car batteries and willpower. And then came the real turning point, the signal. A hacked transmission burst through the Dominion's encrypted channels and played across their internal fleet comms. It was a montage. Dominion soldiers screaming in burning forests, human fighters charging through plasma fire, underground forges belching sparks. In the background, a voice, a human child, soft and steady, whispered in perfect Dominion dialect. Greater than we used to fear the dark. Greater than now we live in it. Greater than you thought we would break. Greater than you mistook our silence for surrender. Greater than but fear. Greater than fear belongs to you now. The Dominion scrambled to locate the source. They never did. It played on loop across 3 sectors. Panic began to spread. Onboard Dominion ships, some soldiers refused to sleep. Others requested reassignment to distant colonies. Rumors spread of ghost divisions, human units that couldn't be tracked, who appeared out of nowhere, struck like demons, and vanished without a trace. Those weren't rumors. They were Unit 9, formerly Echo Squad, now operating with the neural stimulant developed by Dr. Amira Kosim. Extracted from the Koran research site, she had flipped the Dominion's fear suppression tech into something else entirely. A combat enhancer that amplified clarity under stress, that fed off fear like adrenaline. Unit 9 operated without hesitation, pain, or doubt. They didn't scream. They didn't speak. They just moved, calculated, silent, surgical. They became myth. One Dominion officer, upon being captured during a skirmish in the Australian outback, broke within hours. He didn't ask for mercy. He begged for silence. Greater than the humans, they don't fear death. They carry it with them. It's in their eyes. Word of the ghosts spread from ship to ship. Even the most loyal Dominion officers started avoiding Earth-based assignments. The humans weren't just resisting. They were hunting. Orbiting beyond Mars, hidden deep within the asteroid belt, was a Dominion research facility known as Black Site Koran, a name that didn't officially exist on any Dominion records. There, human captives were studied like insects under glass. Their biochemistry, psychology, and behavior were logged, dissected, and catalogued for one purpose: to understand why humans resisted fear. Executor Orcs had grown frustrated. The invasion wasn't going as planned. Standard Dominion doctrine relied on psychological collapse, not drawn-out campaigns. But humans didn't just endure. They grew more dangerous under pressure. Zorix needed answers. He sent one of Earth's brightest, Dr. Amira Kosim, to Koran months ago, forcibly taken during a raid in Cairo. She was meant to develop a suppressant, a chemical method of breaking the human will. Instead, she evolved. Inside the cold halls of Koran, Dr. Kosim had endured every manipulation the Dominion had to offer. Starvation, isolation, drug trials. But what they hadn't accounted for was her mind, and the fact that humans adapt faster under threat than any species they'd ever conquered. Amira didn't find fear. She found focus. Using Dominion neuromapping tools, she reverse-engineered their fear inhibition protocols and began developing a serum not to suppress fear, but to weaponize it. A compound that pushed humans beyond fight or flight into a state of heightened awareness and raw clinical aggression. Dominion scientists overseeing her didn't understand until it was too late. At the same time, back on Earth, Colonel Rourke received intel from Unit 9, Koran's location and its horrific purpose. The Resistance couldn't let it stand. Operation Iron Howl was launched. Utilizing a stolen Dominion infiltration cruiser and zero-G exosuits cobbled together from scrap ISS modules, a squad of ghosts boarded the asteroid silently. They killed without sound, clearing the black site room by room. Surveillance footage later recovered showed Dominion scientists fleeing their own security wards, terrified of the cold-eyed humans cutting through their defenses. Inside a holding chamber, they found Dr. Kosim, gaunt but alive. And in her trembling hands, she held a small vial of glowing orange serum. "I didn't stop the fear," she whispered to Rourke. "I learned how to give it to them." With Koran destroyed and Amira returned to Earth, the Resistance went to work. The serum, nicknamed Ash, for the burned orange hue, was administered to elite squads. Its effect was immediate: enhanced reflexes, suppression of pain, and an eerie, calculating calm in the heat of battle. The ghosts became more than myth. They became a prophecy. In the weeks following the raid, Dominion officers filed more reports of missing patrols, ships found abandoned, and the same single message carved into scorched bulkheads: "Greater than we are the nightmare you created." Executor Orcs issued a galaxy-wide command: double Earth's subjugation fleet, quell resistance, silence the humans, end the infection. But it was already too late. The galaxy had started whispering again, not about Earth's fall, but its rise. And the whispers were loudest among those who used to call themselves conquerors. Above Earth, the Dominion's fleet darkened the stars. Over 400 warships formed a blockade that blanketed the upper atmosphere. Massive carriers deployed drone squadrons by the thousands. Capital ships prepared orbital bombardments, and Dominion engineers established kinetic rails on the moon to launch titanium rods capable of flattening entire cities. Executor Zorix stood aboard the command bridge of the dreadnought Verithun, watching the growing network of firepower. "Earth will burn," he hissed. "This infestation ends now." Down below, Earth's final phase had already begun. Hidden in the Detroit ruins, inside an abandoned Ford factory, Resistance engineers had completed Project IRONFN, a series of stealth-equipped, jury-rigged spacecraft built from Dominion wreckage, 1970s shuttle schematics, and human defiance. Their propulsion was loud. Their armor was patchwork. But they worked. And they had teeth. Colonel Rourke stood on the launch deck, his war coat stitched with burns and claw marks, as the first of Earth's ships roared to life. "They want fire from the sky," he growled. "Let's return the favor." Simultaneously, across the globe, resistance groups rose in coordinated assaults. It wasn't just soldiers anymore. It was everyone. Miners from Chela armed with repurposed drills, Inuit hunters guiding stealth sled teams over ice, African warlords turned freedom fighters leading thousands under a single black banner marked Vengeance. The skies lit up. Human-piloted vessels screamed out of the atmosphere, dodging Dominion flak, and struck the blockade from below. They weren't sleek like alien fighters. They were brutal, clunky, designed by minds used to working with junk and desperation. But they were unpredictable. They didn't follow standard formation logic. They rammed. They spiraled. They crashed into engines and ejected just before detonation. Dominion captains were overwhelmed. Inside the chaos, Unit 9 dropped directly onto a Dominion flagship via orbital insertion pods, silent black coffins that drilled straight through the ship's hull. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. 17 ghosts, 300 Dominion personnel, 14 minutes. When the flagship exploded in a chain reaction that cracked the upper orbit, Executor Zorix watched, stunned, as it tore through a third of his fleet. He turned to his officers, voice unsteady. They weren't supposed to be capable of space warfare. His adjutant shook, whispering. They weren't. They learned. Fast. Down on Earth, civilian cities rang with cheers. In what had once been the ruins of Seoul, a boy climbed onto a Dominion walker, waving the Earth resistance flag for every drone to see. The footage made it into alien news feeds within hours. Entire Dominion client species, races that had submitted centuries ago, began to riot. Some refused to send troops. Others transmitted secret messages to Earth. "Teach us how." Rourke saw the reports. He smiled. "They came to break a species," he said, "but they woke a wildfire." Executor Zorix, desperate, summoned every available ship to orbit Earth. The final fleet, the Harrowers, was on its way. One last crushing blow. But Earth was no longer a victim. It was a warning. The final fleet arrived like the wrath of a god. The Harrowers, a vanguard armada of Dominion purifiers, planet crackers, and death ships, reserved only for the most defiant species. Their engines roared with the heat of dying suns. Their hulls bore the marks of 1,000 exterminations. They weren't designed to fight. They were designed to end. Executor Zorix stood tall aboard the lead ship, armor polished, ice cold. "No more warnings," he snarled. "Reduce Earth to ash. Leave nothing behind." Below, Earth was silent. Cities appeared abandoned. Skies dim. No resistance signals. No power grids. No surface defenses. The Dominion interpreted it as submission at last. They launched their final wave. Troop transports screamed through the clouds. Death ships locked onto population centers. Massive drill burrowers landed to sink into the crust and prepare for planetary destabilization. Then the skies lit up, not from Dominion fire, but from Earth's response. Entire city blocks exploded beneath the invaders. Buildings collapsed onto landing sites. Power grids surged back online in a blinding flash, feeding weapon systems hidden under schools, churches, and libraries. What the Dominion thought were ruins were traps. Underground, humanity had evacuated to subterranean bunkers months earlier. What remained on the surface was bait. Cities turned into minefields. Railguns crafted from skyscraper frames. Drones swarming like hornets from subway tunnels. Fusion batteries wired to go nuclear on proximity. The resistance didn't defend. They ambushed. From orbit, Zorix's fleet saw his legions fall in minutes. And then Earth's atmosphere split open. A new wave of ships rose. Faster, deadlier, built entirely from salvaged Dominion tech. Painted across their hulls was a single phrase in over 40 languages. Greater than, "You should have left us alone." Colonel Rourke led the assault in a ship called the Bastard Child, jury-rigged, ugly, and unstoppable. His voice thundered across the Dominion comms. "Your mistake wasn't attacking us. It was giving us time to understand you. And now we decide when this ends." Human ships tore through Dominion formations with terrifying efficiency. Maneuvers the Dominion couldn't predict. Suicide tactics, coordinated hacks, boarding runs. The last Dominion command vessel tried to retreat. It never made it. Unit 9 breached its bridge. Rourke himself faced Zorix, stepping over the corpses of the elite guard. He held no weapon, just a recording device. He played a message, every Dominion atrocity on record. The bombings, the experiments, the screams. And then Rourke looked into Zorix's trembling eyes. "No more ultimatums," he said. "Only lessons." Rourke raised a plasma cutter and ended it. The war was over, but the story had just begun. Across the stars, Dominion allies fell silent. Subjugated species rose up. The humans didn't claim territory. They didn't demand tribute. They sent a single broadcast on every known frequency. Greater than we are humanity. Greater than we don't needle. Greater than we remember. Greater than and now. Greater than you will too. The galaxy had thought Earth would surrender. Instead, Earth taught it fear.